Hey guys, welcome back to the internet. You know, Halloween is over, my haunted house job is over, BlizzCon is over. Pretty much everything that was taking up all my time is now done, so I should have a little bit more time to make this channel a little more consistent again. As for the scary story videos, they were fun while they lasted, but they're really not my specialty, especially since, between every story I like to make comments, and it's a lot easier for me to, make a joke about things. I really didn't know what to say about most of the scary stories. I felt like it kind of ruined the mood when I would try and tell a joke between them. But let's get back to our normal videos, starting with, you sent me an invitation to your wedding with the guy you cheated on me with. I mailed it back the day you got divorced. So I had a fiance. It was a 4-year relationship. I gave up a lot to stick around and try and make it work with her. 2 scholarships, some really great job offers, a lot. Life-altering stuff. It turns out, while asking me to give this stuff up, she had been cheating for the last 2 of the years with her scumbag boss. She tried to throw a fit and smear my name and justify it, but no one bought it. Even her brother and best friend were on my side. I almost died from BHS during the whole thing, because she was actually mentally torturing me. Not intentionally, I hope, but was textbook with alternating reinforcements, bad and good. And then baiting me into things and then blaming me. Sleeping with her and then blaming me for tricking her, when she was the one coming over. For months that went on, and I finally shook loose. She ended up with the guy because no one else would talk to her. And after a few years, I guess they decided to get married. I asked everyone I knew not to talk to me about her, because it was painful, and basically I was just trying to live my life at that point. Well, as an FU to me, she sent me an invitation to her wedding, and it made me angry. But instead of tearing it up, I just kept it. I put it in a box with other stuff from our relationship, kind of as a warning if I ever felt nostalgic or toyed with getting her back. Well, she's a cheat and he's a scumbag liar, so of course the marriage only lasts a year and goes down in flames. And I see this because one of our old mutual friends mentions it. And she signed the papers that day, so I went right to that box, checked that I would be having the chicken and a +1, and then mailed back my RSVP. When she tried to complain about it, everyone responded with, "Why did you send him one in the first place? That's petty, way to kick him while he's down," etc. And she got zero sympathy. You know, people do some pretty messed up things when it comes to relationships. But what I find so interesting and kind of strange about the whole concept is that none of it's actually illegal. Cheating on somebody, or just going behind somebody's back, or completely deceiving somebody in a relationship, all that can just completely ruin a person. Yeah, it's not actually against the law, you know? I mean, I'm not saying that it should be, but then there's other things that are just very minor inconveniences, like stealing something from somebody, where suddenly it's a big legal case. My entitled mother freaks when my spouse leaves me and I can no longer pay her bills. For as long as I can remember, my mother, an entitled mother, has worked several jobs to pay her bills. As an adult, I got married, and our combined income was pretty good, so we decided we would help take some financial stress off her. So we started paying her phone bill and her utilities, and bringing bags of groceries by once a week or so. Then one day, her car died, and we decided to surprise her with a new one. We picked out a new, smaller silver Toyota, mid-range, not all the bells and whistles, but still a nice car. When we gave it to her, she seemed very appreciative and happy. We told her we'd pay the monthly payment, the registration, and the insurance. The rest was up to her. She still worked full-time, but I had no idea where her money went. The plan was for her to take all those bills on again one day. We just never set a time for it to happen. Fast forward 2 years later, and out of the blue, my wife cheated and took off, leaving me with a ton of debt, a house I couldn't afford on my own, and a broken heart. I called my mom and sobbed over the phone to her about how terrible I felt. She was sympathetic until I told her I wouldn't be able to pay her bills anymore. In fact, she became totally silent. I said, "Are you there?" She said, "Did you just say I have to start paying my bills again? Like my car payment and insurance?" I said, "Yes, I can't afford it anymore with just my salary. Plus, I'm going to lose my house." She says, "I can't afford to start paying these bills." I say, "Mom, I had no idea this was going to happen. I literally have no control over this." She says, "I didn't even want this car. I hate silver. You got me silver knowing how much I prefer white vehicles. And you're now telling me that I have no choice but to pay for an ugly silver car I didn't want? Plus all those other things like insurance? You're the one who gave me those bills. Why should I pay them?" I'm speechless at her response, and then she shrieks, "How could you do this to me?" It's one sentence from her I'll never forget or forgive her for. My sadness turns to anger in a split second. I say, "How could I do this to you? My wife left me. I'm alone and I feel like crap. I'm going to lose my house and my credit is going to be screwed. I barely make enough for my own bills and you're going on about you? I've been paying your bills for over 5 years. Did you never once think that one day they'd be your bills again? Did you ever plan to pay things yourself again, or were you just assuming I'd keep paying everything until you died? You're the crappiest mother on the planet. I'm here heartbroken, lost and depressed, and the only thing you can think about is yourself." I hung up on her and cried even more. Maybe 15 minutes later, my phone rings and it's my sister. Figuring she just got off the phone with my mother, I answer, "Okay, so you talked to Mom? What do you want?" She says, "She's very upset." I say, "So, what about me? Is it that nobody cares what I'm going through right now? My life is in shambles and I'm devastated." She says, "Well, you can't really blame Mom. You bought her that car, she didn't ask for it, and she does only own white cars." I say, "She didn't have a car at all. If I hadn't gotten her that one, she would have had to get a new one anyway. She's been driving it for over 2 years. Besides, she said that at some point she'd be taking those bills back on. When was that going to happen?" She says, "You may just have to work something out with her. Just pay a little to help her back on her feet. You can't just totally stop helping her." I say, yes I can. I ran the numbers. I literally do not have a penny to give her anymore, and you know that. Even if I did, I wouldn't. I've been doing this for years for her, and the way she acted today, she doesn't deserve it. If she needs the money, from here on out, it's on you. This is the one time I need my family for support, and clearly I'm not going to get it." She tried to defend the way my mother reacted, but I just hung up on her too. I put my phone on silent and sat with my dogs in the dark, thinking about how I had nobody to lean on since my mother and sister were such entitled, selfish human beings. After that first phone call, my mother did not reach out to me again to see how I was doing. I learned the hard way who my real friends and family were during that time, and spoiler alert, it wasn't my mother. See, people like this is why I think you should never let anyone get, completely dependent on handouts. Anytime I help somebody out financially, I basically demand access to see everything they spend their money on. Because most of the time people are broke, it's because they just spend their money in stupid ways. Anyways, moving on. Guy paints his house bright purple to spite the town historical board. So when my dad was growing up, every morning his bus to school would pass this bright purple house with yellow trim. Just super obnoxious paint job overall. It was so noticeable that everyone referred to it as the Purple House, and it was kind of a running joke. Turns out, when this guy first bought the house, he painted it an off-white color, and immediately got in trouble with the town board. Since he lived in a historical part of town, there were specific colors he couldn't paint his house, and the basic off-white color was in violation. He thought it was stupid, so he fought it, but lost. The guy just spent several $100s repainting his house, and now had to do it all over again, so he was pissed. As revenge, he finds the most obnoxious color that he could find, that was technically in compliance with the code, and paints his entire house that color, which ended up being bright purple. He kept his house that way for as long as he lived there, pissing off the board for years. You know, I've said it many times before on this channel, some rules are just meant to be broken. You throw keys at me and I'm the a-hole? So I work mostly second shift, and very occasionally NA. On Halloween, we're allowed to dress up in a costume, provided it's appropriate, no big deal. Keep this fact in mind for later. So I go on shift at 3, and I'm dressed pretty conservatively as a cat, complete with a pink nose drawn on my actual nose with lip liner. I'm bopping along to a pretty slow day, but all of our rooms of a certain type are sold out, due to a large company and long-term guests mostly. A guy comes in, and he is with a relatively small church in the area. They have a whole thing arranged, and I get our sales manager to talk to him, because they haven't been in the entire year I've been there. While our sales manager chats up the pastor, the guest from hell comes to the desk and says, "I'm checking in. I'm a Carbon member." I say, "What's the last name on the reservation, sir?" He says, "Hellbeast. What's so hard about that? How many Carbon members does this tiny hotel actually get?" For reference, we currently, on an 80% night for 108 rooms, have 30 Carbon members in-house. I say, "I'm sorry, sir. We have a few Carbon members still on our arrivals tonight. I see a reservation here. Unfortunately, we weren't able to put you on the first floor as requested. I'm sorry for the inconvenience." He says, "That's unacceptable. Someone called me to confirm I was coming in, and they should have reserved my room first floor. How dare you call me and not be able to accommodate my request?" At this point, the pastor is outright staring at the situation unfolding, and the sales manager has started walking towards the back to get our temp GM. I say, "As I said, I'm sorry, sir, but the first floor has been taken up all week due to a group. They're due to check out tomorrow, so after housekeeping gets to the rooms, I can move you if you wish." He says, "I'm a disabled veteran. I shouldn't have to stay on another floor. I'm not normally an a-hole, but y'all really pissed me off by calling and not having my room." I say, "Because it's a question of disability, I can put you close to an elevator so you don't have to walk very far, if that is acceptable. This is one of our last 2 rooms. I'm sorry, sir." He says, "Don't friggin' say sorry if you can't fix it. Your sorry does nothing for me." I say, "That's unfortunate. Are you still wanting your reservation, sir? Or should I see if our sister property located at 20 miles away has a first floor room available for the night?" He says, "I still want my reservation, but you need to comp a night or give me extra points." I say, "Unfortunately, sir, I can't do that, but I can speak to my GM when he is out of the meeting and let him know your complaints." He picks up the keys I set out in front of him. "You stupid bee. Just give me the freaking form so I can go to my room." I hand him the room to sign after getting his ID and credit card. He sees that it's our top floor near the elevator and flips out. Says, "You can't give me a lower freaking floor? Are you stupid or just bad at your job?" I say, I'm sorry, sir, that's the only floor where we had your room type close to the elevator, and we're trying to accommodate disability as much as possible. He huffs and storms off. The pastor, who had watched all this go down, says to me, you handled that with grace and dignity that I wouldn't have had in that situation, before he and the sales manager finished speaking. I turn the corner and the temp GM and our FOM are standing directly behind the separation wall, and immediately ask me if I'm okay. When I affirm that I'm okay, they compliment me. 20 minutes later, Hellbeast comes back down to the front desk. The first thing he does is throw his key sleeve at me, right as the FOM comes around to the front. The FOM immediately gets between the desk and I, blocking me from the man's view. He's like 6'3" and built. Plus, he's a black guy, and this old dude was white and most likely racist due to his Confederate flag cap. Hellbeast was pale when I peeked around the FOM. He calmly tells the Hellbeast that he needs to leave, or he will call the police to escort him out. Hellbeast starts sputtering about how he is a carbon member, and that we can't do that to him. He asks to speak to our general manager. The temp GM comes around the wall. He says, sir, you need to leave. You're no longer welcome at our property, now or in the future. The temp GM escorts the dude to his room, and when he's escorting him to the door, he yells at me that I'm a lying harlot who won't get away with this because he will call corporate. Later I found out between the SM, the FOM, and the GM, the man has been blacklisted at all hotels in the city. This is particularly inconvenient for this man, as we are a smaller city that has a major NFL team stadium a mile and a half from the hotel, and we are situated between the two major cities for business in the area. RNA told me that he got a call of an angry man cussing at him about not being able to get a room anywhere, because that lady lied about him and must be sleeping with someone to have that kind of pull. Well, dude, being a jerk is not gonna get you anywhere. Hopefully you figure that out one day before you get banned from everywhere you go. Now, I didn't really have many options when looking for a question of the day today, but we have some stories from, have you ever bumped into your cat outside of your house in the neighborhood? How was the interaction? I was driving past a school a couple blocks from home and saw his fat butt disappearing through a side gate. Pulled over and said to him through the fence, what are you doing out here? You could see from the confusion on his face that he was surprised to see me. It was all like, wait, what? He meowed at me a couple of times and wandered off to whatever business he was up to. Ah, cats and their secret lives. I grew up in a rural community where it was common to have cats wandering around in the neighborhood. We had a cat that always came over to our place that we fed. She was the friendliest cat, as long as she was within the bounds of our property. As soon as she left the edge of our driveway, though, she would run away from you if you tried to approach her. Not sure why being outside of our lawn caused a 180-degree personality shift, but that's the way she was. Yeah, I feel like cats, obviously feel much safer when they're in a home or a place they know, but whenever they're out, like around the neighborhood, or what they would consider the wild, they're usually very on edge, so even if they know you, they might be like too paranoid to even get close to you. I ask him, why are you outside, Ricardo? You are an indoor kitty. Do not run or resist. I have you now. Return to me. And then he just run. Ah, such a poetic masterpiece. Yeah, I found out he would regularly visit the pub, which was down the end of the street and through an alley. He would go there and beg for food from people sitting on the benches outside. He looked deeply guilty when he saw me standing watching him. You know, I feel like stories like this really depict how different cats and dogs are from each other. Like, dogs are much more reliant on their owners, and are much more likely to respond to their owners, whereas cats are much more, independent, and they're also a bit less likely to even understand what you're saying to them. I usually just put it as dogs are like toddlers, cats are like teenagers. She waits by the side of the street every evening. When she sees me coming around the corner, she runs towards me, making little weird sounds. Then she rubs herself all over me and follows me inside the house. Yeah, this is probably the closest thing Faye ever does from all of these stories. It mostly only ever happens late at night, but sometimes when I would come home from something, I would just see her hanging outside in the front yard, and she would start to freak out and run, but then she would notice it was me, and then she would run up to me meowing. When I was a kid, we lived near the school, and my cat would listen for the recess bell and come find me on the playground. She got confused when I went to junior high and wasn't there at recess anymore. Well, that's all for our cat stories. Hopefully you enjoyed that we're kind of back to our normal thing again. I'm pretty much done doing the whole scary story thing on this channel. I really enjoy horror stuff, and I love listening to scary stories and all that. But like I said, it's not really my specialty. I'm much better at making fun of stories than dramatizing them. Man, after taking so many days off of doing videos lately, it's been hard to even get back into the habit again. But we'll see how things go. I'll probably give this channel till the end of the year, and then I'll most likely be moving on to something else after that point. So enjoy the cat video. teach that not to trim your claws anymore.